Welcome, everybody, to the next installment in our hands-on webinar series. My name is Laura. I run events, campaigns, and webinars here at ARM Treasure Data. So I'd like to welcome you to running treasure data from the command line, part 1. This has been a highly requested overview that we've received from our clients and our partners. So we are excited to bring it to you now for the first time. You'll notice it is part 1. That means we need your feedback and opinions on what we should cover specifically for part 2. So go ahead, feel free at any point you can leave comments of what you'd like to see next time, if you'd like to dive deeper into something or make sure that we cover another aspect of running treasure data from the command line that we don't get to this time. There is a lot of material, so we're definitely not going to get to everything today. Before we go too much further, thank you, Rhett, for being here this morning. Happy morning. Rhett is our solutions architect. He's going to be walking us through part 1 and on October 9th, part 2. At any point, if you have a question, go ahead and you can ask it in your GoToWebinar interface on the side there. So yeah, anytime we're going to see how many questions we have at the end, we'll get to as many as we can. And again, we would love to hear your feedback about what Rhett should cover next time for part 2. Alrighty, so without further ado, Rhett, running treasure data from the command line.
Yes, thanks, Laura. Hi, this is Rhett Rademacher. I'm a solutions architect here at Treasure Data. We're going to talk about running treasure data from the command line, part 1. And we're going to focus on importing data. And let me get to my slides. The information here that we have will also be available on GitHub, at least some of the sample files, so that they can be accessed later down the road. So let's dive right in. So what we're going to cover today, we're going to have a little bit of getting started. What is TD Toolbelt? Installation overview. We're going to talk about authentication. We're going to also talk about a sample use case called NASM electronics and just walk through a few steps on how to import and use that as our example. In the TD Toolbelt commands, we're going to talk about databases and tables, generating a seed config file, and then importing that data into treasure data. So let's get started. So what is TD Toolbelt? Well, TD Toolbelt allows you to create databases and tables and import the data into and from tables and set the modified table schema, issue queries, monitor job status, view and download job results, create queries, and much more. Overall, it's just a way that you can simply use the command line to quickly enter jobs or enter quick commands that allow you to do it much simpler than having to use the web console. An example of that will be, just typing in TD into the command line, and what will happen is you'll receive a help menu that gives you the options in terms of the basic commands and what will appear. And we're going to go over this here shortly. So first things first, we need to get TD Toolbelt installed. So the best way to do that is to visit toolbelt.treasuredata.com. From there, you're going to see a little window here, a little browser window here that has all of the different operating system platforms. Go ahead and select the operating system that you have. In this case, we're going to use Mac. You would select Mac. You'd click the download button and locate the TD Toolbelt package that's downloaded. Double click to open it, and then when the operating system prompts you to install, just follow the steps to continue. Once that's done, you're going to open Terminal. To do that, Terminal is in your application. For those who don't know, Terminal is in your Applications folder, Utilities, Terminal. You double click on it, and from there, we're going to have you type in TD-version, which will then display the output here. In this example, it has .16.1, which is the current version as of this video. And that's pretty much it. Once you get that installed, TD Toolbelt is now installed. Now that it's installed, the next thing that we need to do is authenticate. So we need to be able to sign in to TD Treasure Data using the command line. The best way to do that is to type in this command. So you're going to do TD-E HTTPS, which is the Treasure Data endpoint, followed by account/F. Once you hit return, you're going to be entered into asking you for a username or your email address, which will be your Treasure Data email account, and your password. Once you successfully entered your password, you will be prompted with an authenticated successfully message. Once you're there, then you're all set. Just as a side note, though, when you save your API key, what's going to happen is the file itself with the API, the endpoint here, along with your authentication token, will be stored in your home folder in this .td, td.conf file. If you ever need to delete this file or view it later down the road to change the credentials, you can do that. So our use case today is NASM Electronics. It's an e-commerce website that sells the latest devices. What we're going to do is we're going to create a demo database. From there, we're going to import some sample data using FTP. And I'm going to show you a few different ways, data types that we're going to import. Two common file formats, which would be CSV and gzip. By the end of the webinar, you're going to learn how to view databases and tables from the command line, create and delete database tables, create seed files to prep the data for import, along with taking that seed file, loading it into treasure data, therefore to import it, to get it into treasure data. So just to kind of give you an idea of what's going to happen here, so we're going to import a few different sources. Right now we have computers, iMacs and MacBooks, so we're going to be importing iMacs and MacBooks in CVS format. We have tablets as a category, and we're going to be importing iPad information as iPad data. And then we're going to have phones, which what I've done here is I've grouped it together. We're going to import them in batch format so you can see what it's like when you import multiple files using gzip. And the end result here is going to be the input into treasure data. So we want to see this right here. All right. So the TD Toolbelt commands. The first thing is when you get into the command prompt, you're going to type in TD. TDDB will show all of the commands for the database, and TD table will show all like a help menu for all of the database. And we're going to jump into the interactive component here in a minute. So what we're going to do is we're going to list databases, we're going to show databases, create new databases, delete, and just for review, we're going to show you what it looks like in the admin console as we go through the steps, just to get an idea of how it works, not only with the command line, but in terms of what will appear in the GUI as well. Same thing with tables. We're going to list and show tables, create tables, rename tables, delete tables, all the good stuff. And again, we're going to review the admin console to see how all that looks. So let's get started here. So I'm going to hop over here to the command line. On the left pane here, you're going to see my seed file here, as well as the command line over here. So to get started first, what we're going to do is TDDB. So TDDB just shows you a help menu on how to use the DB command. So in this case, we're going to see we type in TDDB:list, which will show us a list of databases. So we're going to do that here. And as you can see, there are a bunch of databases here that will appear that are currently in our treasure data demo account. Start that again with TDB. And if you want to see a specific database, information from a specific database, what you're going to do is you're going to type in TDDB show and then the database name. So in our example, we're using NASM Electronics. So I have a database here called NASM Complete. So we're going to say this is the name of the database table here, NASM Complete. And we hit return. And you're going to see 4 tables that we've created here. The computers, the phones, and the tablets. Monitors here has no schema, but I'll explain that here in a minute why. If we want to create a new database, the best method to do that is going to be TDDB create. And in this example, we'll call it NASM demo. All right, so in this case, it looks like we already have it created. So actually what we'll do is we're going to do TD delete, and then we'll say NASM demo.
And just for everybody following along, if you're having trouble seeing this, go ahead and make full screen, and you'll be able to see all the commands.
Oh yeah, I could possibly make this bigger too as well.
That'd be great. But yeah, also I would suggest folks go full screen on your GoToWebinar.
All right. Cool. So let's go back. We're going to clear my screen, and we're going to create a new database again. So we're going to TD create, and we'll call it NASM demo. Great. Once the database is successfully created, you'll see a database NASM demo is created, and it gives you an option for the next command, which will be allow you to create a table within that database, and this will be the command here. So now that we've created the database called NASM demo, what I want to do is hop over to the GUI to show you what that looks like. So in here, this is our treasure data console, and we're going to go to NASM. Need to refresh the page here. We'll type in NASM. And then as you see here, this was the database we just created, NASM demo, and the one that I was showing you before, which was NASM complete, which has the 4 tables that we created earlier, along with data that's inside each one of them. And what we're going to do here is we're going to NASM complete. We're going to import all of this data, just like we did here with NASM complete, into the NASM demo database. So we're going to jump back over to the command line, and we'll jump into the tables. So right now, we're going to do a TD table. And just like we did with the database, when you type in TD table, it's going to give you a help menu here that allows you to see all these commands that are available. We're just going to focus on a handful today. And what we're going to do is do TD table list. And we're going to list the NASM complete database. So it's TD table list, as you can see here, and then the database name, which is NASM complete. Hit return. And in this case, you'll see a, let me make this a little bit bigger for you. This case, you're going to see the tables that are created here. We have computers, monitors, phones, and tablets. And then it shows the schema here, which is why it's wrapping along here underneath here. So, slide that back. Next, we're going to show information within the table itself. So we're going to do TD table show, and we'll say NASM, we'll say the database. So it's going to be NASM complete, and then we'll say computers. As computers is the table that we're selecting here. Great. And with this command, you're just it's going to show you the schema itself, the type, the count, how many are currently inside, items that are inside, along with the schema itself. I'm going to clear that. Cool. So next we're going to do a rename. So I want to show you we're going to rename a table. So currently in TD, we're going to do TD table, rename. And actually, you know what? Let me do this. We're going to do TD table, just to have you show you as I go along here. So we're going to do TD table. We're going to say rename. And as you can see up here, you're going to do rename. You're going to enter the database, and then you're going to enter the table name of the current one that you have and what you want to name it to. So right now, we currently have a table called monitors. So we're going to say NASM complete, and we have a table called monitors, and we're going to rename it to printers. Great. Once it's done, you'll see it says renamed from NASM monitors to NASM complete printers. And to show, so what we can do is we can say TD table list NASM complete. Oops, let's type that. So we're going to say no spaces in between. Great. So as you can see here in the table list here, you have computers, phones, printers, and tablets, whereas before we had monitors here. So that's how we rename a table. And just to show you here on the GUI side, what that looks like as well. We're going to say NASM complete. And you can see that change has been made here as well. All right, let's go back. All right, next what we're going to do is we're going to create a database. So we're going to do sample importing of some data. We've already created that database. As you remember, if you remember earlier, what we did was we did TD create, TD DB create, and we said NASM demo. We'll just do it again just in case. Actually, so you can see what it looks like when it says that the NASM database already exists. You'll just be prompted with this message here. It's great. So before we start importing data, what we want to do is create the tables beforehand. So best way to do that is to use the TD create command, TD table create, just like we were doing before. So in this example, what we want to do is, just to go back to my slide here, we're going to import the computers category, the tablets category, and the phones. So these are each are going to be independent tables. So we're going to create a table for computers, tablets, and phones. Using the TD Toolbelt command, we're going to go TD table create, and then we're going to say the database name. So we're going to say NASM demo, and now we want the table name. So we're going to call it computers. Table is successfully created, and then we're going to do the same thing for tablets and phones. So I'm just going to hit the up arrow key to go back to my last command, change this from computers to tablets, and then one more time, we're going to change it to phone. Great. So I'm going to clear my screen here. So now that we have these tables created, one way to double check that if you want, we can go back into the web browser here just to kind of get an idea. So we'll go back to all the databases. Let me refresh. And in the NASM demo database, we have the tables that we just created with 0 records. And if we click on them, there'll be nothing inside. No schema has been created just yet. So far, all we've done is just created those tables here. Let's jump back. All right. So what we've done is, let me go back to this slide here. So what we have are a few computers. Oops. Computers sensitive here. So the computers has a few CSV files that we're going to import. And what I've done here is created what's called a YAML file. In fact, let me jump to importing data using the TD connector. So first, let's go over this to give you an idea, kind of an understanding. So to import data with a seed file, what you do is we create a seed file, which is kind of like a config file. That essentially is just a YAML file. That YAML file will load that seed file and do a guess. And the guess essentially is it'll loop over all of the data that's in there and make its best educated guess on what type of data that is, and therefore whether it's comma separated or tab delimited, tab separated, or any zip file format. It will kind of guess and then automatically look for that information and add it to the guess file to import. Next, you can, from the guess file, you can actually just send it right directly over to Treasury Data, Or additionally, you can do a preview that seed file before you upload it into Treasure Data. And we're going to walk through all 4 of these steps here. One thing to note, though, with YAML files, that you must either use 2 spaces or 4. Tabs are not allowed. So just be careful as you're creating these YAML files that if things don't work properly or you receive an error, just double check to make sure that you're using spaces and not tabs. A sample seed file is going to look something like this. We have in, colon, and then we're going to have, I have here 2 spaces, and then type colon, and we're going to choose the FTP type. Host name, port number, username, password, path prefix, all this is pretty straightforward. What's going to happen at the end, we're going to have an output, and the mode is going to be append. Now, again, this is just kind of a reminder, 2 spaces or 4 spaces, but tabs are not allowed. So let's hop over to the file that I've created here. So in the seed1 file here, the seed1 YAML, I just named, we can name this anything you want. I just named it for the sake of the steps that we're going to go through the course. But right now we have seed file 1, which are going to be CSV files. So let me do this. All right, so in the in, we're going to say we have FTP. The host is going to be ftp.nasma.app, which is the URL or an IP address, whatever you choose or whichever one that makes it easier for you to connect. Port 21 is the one that we're going to use here. The username is nasma at nasma.app, and the password is speaker through 3350 exclamation point. We're going to change this after the webinar, but otherwise, in the future, this is where your password will go. In terms of the path prefix, this is where you're going to actually, when you connect to the FTP server, I have a folder inside there called import to TD, and then inside that folder, I have seed1 computers. And actually, what I'm going to do is show you what that looks like, just to give you a visual representation of what I've uploaded. We are going to connect to FTP. So as you can see here, here's the FTP server. In the root of the FTP server, here's the folder name, import to TD. So that's what's going to be listed here, the passive prefix. And then inside there, I have another folder called seed1 computers. Again, this is just mainly so to keep things organized and structured, so I know how to know which step to go with, but you can rename these to anything that you'd like. Inside here, we have those 2 files, those 2 CSV files that we were showing before. We have a computer iMac and MacBook that we're going to import. And then same thing for seed 2 and 3, and we'll go over here. We'll go over those here next. So to get these CSV data that's inside this from FTP server, we need to create this YAML file, which is what we've done here. And then from there, we need to create a load file. And to do that, we're going to use something called TD connector. And like I was saying before, with TD connector, it uses something called guess. So here, in this command here, we're using TD connector, guess, seed1, which is the name of this YAML file that I created, as you can see over here, seed1-computers.csv.yaml, followed by an O for output, and then load1.computers-csv. In fact, that is incorrect. We need to make sure that says CSV. All right. And this name here, the output name, can be anything you want. Again, I named it load1 as just to follow seed1 computer CSV. You don't have to follow it method, but just to make it simple, this is what I've done. So once you've added it here, we're going to hit return. And what's going to happen is it's going to try to guess that the data that's inside. So as you can see here, through the TD connector, it used the FTP credentials, found that folder, went through all those files, determined that it was a CSV file. Notice that the delimiter is comma separated, and it found that there's even headers here at the top, so it's going to use those. So those as the column headers. So now as you can see here, we have title, processor, memory, storage, condition, price, brand, category. Determine that the price here was a double, and the rest are strings. The output is going to be append, and filter type. This is just information that's added to the file itself, or uploaded to the treasure data, and that's it. So like we were saying before here in this screen, we created the seed file. We just loaded the seed file using the TD connector guess, and we can either send it over to treasure data or we can preview. So right under here, just when we created that load file, it gives you the option to do a TD connector preview. So we're going to do that. Again, this is optional, it's not mandatory. If you do a preview, the information does not get uploaded to treasure data. It's just for your own peace of mind to see what this connector did, or the guess connector did. And if we hit return, sorry, it's kind of jumbled here, but you can kind of get an idea that here's what the sample data will look like. And yep, that looks right. It is title string, processor string, memory string, and price is a double. And then it adds that timestamp here. So that's great. That's exactly what we wanted. So what we're going to do is we're going to say we want to load that into treasure data. So to do that, we are going to do something called, in fact, when you do a preview, it actually shows it here at the bottom. So we're going to do a TD connector issue. And what that's going to do here, it's going to import that load file, which is the load1-computer csv.yaml file. Again, it's just kind of a aside here. When you use that seed file in this folder that I have, this seed file, where these seed files exist, when you do a TD guess, it's going to create that load file in that same directory that you have the seed files themselves. So as you can see here, it says load1-computers. So this is the same thing that appears here. In that event that if there was a mistake or something goes wrong, that the preview didn't work right, you would just go ahead and delete the load file and then rerun the seed, so then it reissues a new YAML file. So in this case, everything looks good, so we're going to move ahead and import it into treasure data. And to do that, we have this TD connector issue. Copy that. Hit return. Oops. Forgot the database name. So in fact, what we need to do is, it's saying that we need the database flag and the table that we want it to go to. So that's what I missed here. So --, so after we do TD connector load computers, we're going to have CSV.yaml. We're going to do --, database, and this is with the database that we want to send it to, which is NASM demo we created earlier, and what table we want it to go to. So that's computer. From there, we hit return. And as you can see here, now it's the job is queued. And this is a TD Toolbelt command that we haven't gone over, but we will go over in the future. But TD job show allows you to see the jobs that we just created. So it puts the job that we created into a queue. And every job that you supply or that you send to treasure data, it creates a job ID, a unique job ID, tells you what the status is, and then gives you information about the job itself. And I'll show you how this is the same information that you'll see from the GUI here in a minute. So as you can see, that was successful. So TD job shows that the status of this import was successful. So what we can do now is if we go into the GUI, we refresh NASM demo, our computers database, or our computers table rather, should have all of those files that we just imported a little bit ago. And yep, all of that looks right in terms of the schema. This was everything that was created earlier. through the TD connector guess. And yeah, that looks great. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and do the other two. Just as I explained to you earlier, in the jobs queue, you will see, or the jobs history, what you're going to see here is the last import, this job number. We click on it. You're going to see that, the output of the logs, as well as all of this is kind of all the details about the queue itself, about the job, everything that happens. So if there's an error, you can kind of go through and see this as well. In addition, you can kind of see what the TD config did, all the details about the load file itself, and see all the details about it. Great. So let's go back to databases. Cool. All right. So now that we've done that, what we're going to do, let me clear my screen here to make it easier to read. So first thing we've done is the seed computers using CSV. Now I'm going to show you what a similar method, which is just allows you to do a gzip file. Let me go here to CyberDuck. So now that we've successfully imported the computers for the iMac and the MacBook, we're going to jump into the tablets. So as you can see here, the tablets file itself is a CSV, but is gzipped. Another common file format that you'll see this file, whether it's files that are stored in Amazon S3 or other files that are stored in the computer that automatically gzips the files. This would be a method that it seems fairly common. And we're going to use that seed file here to import this csv.gzip file. So similar to seed one, in fact, almost identical with the exception of just changing the prefix of where that the data lives, is really all we're going to do. TD is actually, the Toolbelt is actually pretty smart, where it will now, through TD connector guess, will find that file format where you don't have to manually enter in the delimiter or the file type or the parser information. It will automatically guess that for you. So let's do that. So what we're going to do is, for the gzip, we're going to use TD connector guess. So we're going to say TD connector guess, and we're going to say c2-tablets.gzip.yaml, which again is the same file that's over here. Output's going to be to load to, and we're going to hit return. And there we go. Perfect. Similar as same as before, it automatically created found that it was a CSV file, delimiter, comma delimited, and found that there's headers on the file, and as well as showed all of the used the headers for the schema itself. This is great. Again, over here you see that load file here for tablets was created, and what we're going to do is just to make sure that we get it to, just to kind of resonate that how the preview works, we're just going to do the preview one more time to show what the data will look like. And in this case, we have a bunch of iPads, the prices, the brand, the tablets, and the timestamp. So great, that all looks good. And what we want to do next is send that over to the database. So we're going to use TD connector issue. We're going to say load to this gzip.yaml file, and we're going to select the database, so -- database, which is going to be NASM demo, and then the table that we want it to go to, which is called tablets. Return. Job is now queued, so if we go ahead and show that job, if I do it quick enough, you can see that it'll say here status is running. So it's, once you run that job, it's going to throw it in the queue, it's going to start running, and then if we load that job again, TD job show, we'll see here that it was successful. Cool. So let's hop over to the UI here, and we're going to refresh this NASM demo database. And as you can see here, the tablets that we just imported are now there. All the tablets, all the prices, the brand categories. Awesome. So next what we're going to do is go over a batch. So jump over here real quick. So we have in the phones as a table, and we're going to import a bunch of different phones with 3 different models. Each of these phones is in their own gzip file. So we're going to kind of simulate the idea of having single files, but all being individual files being uploaded in a single go. So to do that, what we've done here is the C3 phones batch YAML. Again, it's identical with the exception of changing the prefix. And prefix again is the name of the folder. Here. And then here are the phones in CSV format, Google, iPhones, and Samsung. So let's hop over back to the terminal. All right, so what we're going to do is do a TD connector guess. TD connector guess, C3, which is the name over here, dash batch.yaml, output load3.phones dash batch.yaml, hit return. Cool. Same as before. In this case, the decoder, it found that the file format is gzip. Charset is UTF-8, and did notice that the file type is CSV, as well as the delimiter is comma separated. Same as before, found that the skipped headers is 1, so therefore the column names, the schema uses the titles here as the column names. So all good there. And as you can see over here, we have the load3 YAML file. So if there need to be any changes that can be made to the load file, you can actually do it here manually if you choose to. Otherwise, in this case, everything looks good, so we're just going to leave it alone. And then we're going to import the load file into Treasure Data. So let me clear my screen. So here we're just going to do the same thing. We're going to import this load file, send it to the NASM demo database, and it's going to go to the phones, the table name phones. Hit return. And we have an error. So let's find out why. So load phone 3 batch dash phones YAML database demo table phones resource not found. Interesting. All right, hang tight. Let's see here. So we have. Let's make sure it found out. Let's try that again. So we'll just TD connector. Issue. We have load 3 phones batch YAML. Just copy that. Database will be some demo table phones. Ah, that's what it is. So phones is not plural, so we just called it phone. So actually, this is a good example to go back. And what we're going to do is we can just do a TD table rename. So we're going to TD table rename. Oops, TD table rename the database, which is going to be NASM demo. And then we'll say the name is phone, and we want to change it to phones. There we are. Now we should be able to do that import. There we go. So job is queued, and if we, again, we do TD job show. It's thinking here. Let's try that again. There we are. All right, so TD showed, job number, successful. Everything looks great, just as we showed before. And now if we go over to the UI, we should be able to go back to the demo, see that phones is now plural. We have 5 columns in there, and it's not much. Oops, sorry about that. Back to NASM demo. Click on phones, and now we see all 3 of those files here. So we have the Apple phones, the Samsung phone, as well as the remaining phones here. But in this case, we only show 40 of the 97 records that are here. So yeah, so that is the way to use TD connector and guess to create the seed file, as well as run the load file, and then import the data into treasure data, and as well as preview that seed file if you want to, and then load that information to treasure data. These are just the steps as we went to before. This is an example of the sample seed file that I used here. So FTP, NASM.app, port 21, username, and the path to the source. In this case, these are the commands that I used here in terms of importing the 3 sets of data using FTP with the 2 different file formats. So as an example, we use TD connector, guess, the name of the CSV, the YAML file, output, and the name of the output file that you want it to be called. And that's it. And then there's TD connector preview, which in fact I did not put in the slide, but let me go back here just so we can show you. Bear with me here. There we go. So TD connector preview is the method to view the file before you upload it into treasure data. And that's pretty much it.
Awesome.
And then the last thing here we have are just the resources here. So the 2 ARM TD command line, Toolbelt command line reference. You can visit our support website, and we have a full reference guide here that shows you all those commands that we used, more sort of in a list format, so you don't have to type in the command each time in the terminal.
Very cool. And for everybody listening, we will be sending out the slide deck with the video recording. Please do feel free to share that with your team. You'll be able to, click on these links and get to the support pages if you need them. Mm-hmm. So we're almost out of time. So I think we have time for, I think, 1 or 2 questions. Oh, and we actually have a suggestion, because this is part 1. We're going to do part 2 on October 9th, and we welcome your thoughts, suggestions about what you'd like to see more of, what you think we should cover. So we have a question. Will we cover export from TD using TD-CLI in the next session?
We can, yes.
Yeah?
We can definitely add that. Great suggestion.
All right, cool.
Definitely.
Cool, add that there. And then one more question, I think. What are the benefits of using the command line versus going through a web browser or web console?
Sure. So with the command line, one thing that we're going to actually show in the next part 2 would be why workflow is important. So with TD Toolbelt, you can actually create what's called a workflow that'll allow us to make these seed files, put these seed files in a particular order, and what will happen with workflow, it'll run all of those continuously based on a script that we create. We'll cover more of that. In fact, we have actually a webinar on workflow itself on the website.
On the website, if you go to our website and go under resources and then click the videos and webinars category, you will find our previous hands-on webinars like this, one of which is using TD Workflow, which is very helpful.
Correct.
Yes.
So you can think of Workflow as just kind of as a tool that will run all of these YAML files here, as well as a bunch of different shell scripts and other things that you can add to it, as well as putting that to run at a scheduled time.
And they can run like consecutively or concurrently,
correct,
right? Correct. All that. Yeah.
Exactly.
Cool.
Exactly.
Awesome. Okay, well, we are out of time. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Rhett, for your time this morning and walking us through this. If anybody out there has more ideas of what you'd like to see covered in part 2, please go ahead, email myself, I'm Laura at treasuredata.com, or email Rhett, R-H-E-T-T, at treasuredata.com, and we would love to hear your suggestions. But yes, have a great day from where you are, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, everyone.